D.C. leaders have said the influx of federal law enforcement under President Trump's surge has had some impact on crime, but the News4 I-Team found questions about whether that progress is sustainable.
A national expert on violence reduction warns approaches like this one are not likely to succeed without long-term investments in communities. Investigative reporter Tracy Wilkins joins us now with more on this. I know a lot of people are looking at this, Tracy.
Yeah, a lot of questions for folks who live in the District of Columbia. The nation has witnessed what this federal surge looked like. But for people in this city who have been living under it, the question is what happens when it ends? We spoke with Thomas Apt, a professor who spent decades studying how to reduce crime in cities. He says if you want to make long-lasting impacts on crime, you have to get at the heart of what causes it.
Did you look?
If you ask Professor Thomas Apt the best way to stop violence in our communities, he'll tell you, take a look at the science.
What we know from the research is that you need carrots as well as sticks. You need positive incentives to change your behavior as well as negative incentives to punish you if you continue engaging in crime and violence.
Apt runs the University of Maryland's Violence Reduction Center, a project that has analyzed thousands of studies on crime reduction strategies in order to pinpoint what works and what doesn't. His group advises local leaders on developing the most effective plans for their cities. He has not worked directly with the district, but is familiar with its crime trends. When you heard that there was going to be a federal surge, what were your thoughts?
My first thought was, why now? Crime is falling dramatically in Washington, D.C. right now, and it has been for about 18 months. So the timing, to me, was curious.
Apt wouldn't speculate on motives, but cited several reasons he believes D.C.'s crime has been falling, like the stabilization of courts and systems after the pandemic, the reaccreditation of D.C.'s crime lab, police targeting high-risk offenders, and community-based violence reduction programs. That's why he took notice when in April, the Trump administration slashed more than $800 million in federal safety and justice grants from the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs.
We don't know for sure what that impact will be, but a lot of those, but the evidence in favor of those programs was generally promising. And so we're deeply concerned that it could have an impact on crime as we move forward.
According to the Council on Criminal Justice, where Apt is the senior fellow, those grants funded programs across the country for policing, juvenile justice, corrections initiatives, and more. In other words, they helped fund efforts to make systemic change beyond policing alone.
So what we're seeing with this federal surge is a surge of resources only on one side of the table, not on both sides, which would be much more effective.
What would you suggest if you had an opportunity to have a conversation with President Trump about how to deal with violence in cities? What would you say?
What I would offer is that we know what works to reduce violent crime. We have thousands of studies, and they're all saying basically the same thing. They're saying be focused on the highest risk people and places. Be balanced in terms of some punishments, some rewards, some carrot, some stick. And finally, be fair, meaning involve the people who are most impacted at the community level in the policymaking process. And what I would caution the president is that right now, this federal surge of law enforcement is neither focused nor balanced nor fair as perceived by the residents of Washington, D.C.
Does this feel like we're heading in a direction where there's going to be a positive outcome?
It's unlikely. The research shows that federal or other surges like this or crackdowns may have a temporary effect. And you are seeing some temporary reductions in crime around D.C. But the problem is that those reductions are not sustainable. At some point, the crackdown or surge has to end. And it has changed nothing on the ground. It hasn't made local law enforcement any better or more effective, and it hasn't addressed the underlying concerns. And so often these surges are not sustainable, and they can have negative collateral consequences, especially in terms of community trust.
D.C. police data shows that since the surge began, the district has seen an 18% drop in reported violent crime compared to the same period a month earlier. But crime has been dropping all year. Apt is concerned some of the recent decline may be that immigrant communities are afraid to call the police.
President Trump says he cares about controlling and fighting violent gangs like MS-13, 18th Street, and other ones. But this is precisely the type of thing that gives those gangs a greater control over those communities, because it closes them off and it makes them harder. It makes it harder for them to trust the government and law enforcement.
We reached out to the White House with App's concerns, and in a statement, a spokeswoman attacked what she called his political ideology, noting he's donated to Democratic politicians, and said he is not a credible expert. The statement continued, President Trump's operation in Washington, D.C. has been widely successful with driving down violent crime, and the president is invested in the long-term success of these efforts. And the spokeswoman noted D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser signed an executive order requiring the district to cooperate with federal law enforcement moving forward. But his bottom line here is that it's just not sustainable, the results that we're seeing, and that there needs to be a multi-pronged approach, and that there is science and data that approves of that kind of approach and says that that is what makes the difference when you're trying to deal with crime.
It'll be interesting to see. We know this crime emergency is ending tonight, even though we'll still have National Guard troops out there, but we'll see what happens a month from now, a year from now.
Yeah, and there are going to be experts like Apt who are paying close attention to the numbers and are going to analyze what we've seen here and what it means for the future.
All right, Tracy, thanks so much.